No one realizes what the Dallas Cowboys is doing. We're gonna be going through interesting stats you may not have noticed about the Dallas Cowboys when they versed the Colts last weekend. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Dallas Cowboys content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel hitting that red button down below. While the final 54-19 score was jaw-dropping, the Dallas Cowboys win over the Indianapolis Colts is a very peculiar thing when you look at the stats and numbers. Some have to be looked at in the bigger context to make much sense. Chest thumping might need to be restrained. Some big flaws were hidden by the lopsided score. Positives also jumped out. That makes for some interesting observations and maybe a few conclusions. Also, there have to be some fun things when you blow a team so completely out of the water. So we're gonna be going through 4 interesting stats no one realized. The first stat we are going to be going through is penalties. This is a number that can stand alone without looking at some of the odder aspects of the game. It has been a damaging one for Dallas in many games, creating an obstacle. Before the 13-flag fiasco against the New York Giants, which they won, the 3 previous highest totals for the team were the 3 losses. Given that all were fairly close losses, those penalties may have been a reason they came up short. Getting penalized only 3 times for 43 yards was their best performance of the season. It was only the 3rd time they had been flagged less than 6 times. Not killing your own drives or extending those of the opponent has a lot to do with the final score. When watching the game, it did appear that the team was more conscious of things like too many in motion before the snap and offside penalties. If they can continue to keep the number of infractions down, it would be a big help for the playoff drive. Now they have to show consistency. The second is offensive stats. Normally, if you see 54 points scored, you expect some big numbers on offense. That was not at all the case. The Cowboys only had 385 total yards, what you'd usually expect for maybe half that score or less. Even stranger, they had far more rushing yards, 220 to just 165 via the pass. There was clearly no need for more, but it seems to paint a much less rosy picture of the game prior to the record-setting scoring explosion in the 4th quarter. 220 yards on the ground is something you will always take, because it means that to a large extent you are controlling the flow and tempo of the game. Getting 91 from Tony Pollard and 77 from Ezekiel Elliott is also great, with this very much following the pattern of Pollard being the breakaway threat while Elliott is pounding it against the opponent. They also ran back-to-back jet sweeps with CeeDee Lamb for 23 yards while rookie Malik Davis got on the field on the final drive to add 29, including his first NFL touchdown. But while the ground game was working so efficiently with a 6.5 yards per carry average, Dak Prescott was mostly making short throws. He was 20 of 30 with 3 TDs and an interception. What is remarkable is that Dallas just averaged 5.3 yards per passing attempt. That is usually much higher for Prescott. And through the first 3 quarters, the Cowboys had some struggles on offense. They had 2 3-and-outs and 4 punts total as possessions stalled, plus the interception late in the 2nd quarter. Perhaps part of the approach was to help protect Prescott. Whether it was or not, the quarterback stayed clean most of the game, only getting sacked once and with just 1 hit on him credited to the Indianapolis defense. He also used his mobility well to protect himself on several pass attempts. They would end the day converting 7 of 13 third downs for an acceptable 54%, but it still was not the excellent number you expect with that many points. Further emphasizing the unusual nature of the game was that the longest play of the game was just 30 yards, and it was a Tony Pollard touchdown run. Half of the 10 longest gains for the day came on the ground. This and other things make this game seem like an anomaly rather than a clear indicator of what the team is. The true key to how things turned out was not on offense. The third stat is defense stats. The reason for such a paltry offensive output in an extremely high-scoring effort was the defense. 5 takeaways, one of which went for an instant touchdown, set up short fields and made big numbers on offense unnecessary. They had 3 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. In addition to the return score, they set up 2 other TD drives deep inside Colts territory. For the day, they held Jonathan Taylor to 82 yards and overall just yielded 106 yards on the ground. They also got to Matt Ryan for 3 sacks, none from the usual edge suspects. 5 takeaways is great. It is also not something reliable. Ryan came into the game with 10 interceptions and only 11 touchdowns, so it is not unsurprising that he was picked 3 times. This is not something we can expect to show up against the Philadelphia Eagles or anyone the Cowboys face in the playoffs. Still, this was a great day at the office for the defense. Dalron Bland was the star of the day for them with his 2 picks, 2 passes defended, and 8 total tackles. Malik Hooker had the 3rd pick and that fumble recovery touchdown. Some made note of of the quiet day Micah Parsons had, with only 2 tackles, a QB hit, and a pass defended. That is not the negative that some paint it to be, as it shows they don't have to have Parsons being Superman for the defense to get the job done. And quietly, Jonathan Hankins is proving to be an excellent acquisition for the team. He had 5 tackles in the game and greatly shores up the middle of the defense. The fourth is red zone stats. This is not only a very good stat from this game, it may be something that is starting to be consistent. The Cowboys were a perfect 4 for 4 in the red zone. That was a contributing factor to the low totals for Prescott as he completed 2 of his 3 touchdowns from that close range, and his third was just outside the RZ with the snap taken right at the 20. What is a really good sign is that this is the second week in a row they went 4 for 4. Keep that up and the last part of the season could go very well indeed. This was a game where the numbers definitely need to be considered in the overall context of a game that had 2 distinct phases. For nearly 3 quarters, the Colts stayed right with Dallas. That was aided by some Cowboys miscues. But starting with the Dallas touchdown drive that started in the 3rd and extended into the 4th, Indianapolis seemed to cave. A couple of quick scores in the first minute and a half of that final quarter, including the Hooker fumble return, really took the wind out of their sails, and when the Cowboys defense stopped them with an interception on the next Colts possession, they pretty much were done. The last 2 touchdowns were largely garbage time things. Countering that is the 40 burger that was already up at that point. We can probably expect to see a couple more dominant wins as they face the league's worst team in the Houston Texans and the 4-8 Jacksonville Jaguars. But just like this game, those won't really tell us how good this team really is. The true test is on Christmas Eve. Do not think that second meeting with the Eagles is going to be anything like this massive beatdown. So the bonus story in today's video is Dak Prescott says Cowboys meeting with Odell Beckham Jr. went well. There are several teams vying for the talents of free agent wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., but there might not be one that desires his services more than the Cowboys, who met with Beckham this week after several members of team have publicly pitched him on joining them in Dallas. Quarterback Dak Prescott told reporters Thursday that the team's meeting with the 3-time Pro Bowler, which Prescott was included on, went well. Despite the player's apparent eagerness to sign him, reports have surfaced that the franchise's decision-makers have doubts about Beckham's ability to play since he's less than a year removed from tearing his ACL and did not work for the team during his visit. Obviously, it would help to have him. He's a great player, Prescott said. If he can come in and play right now 100%, we want him. But I've got a lot of confidence in the guys we have. It's unclear when Beckham might sign with a team and return to the field. Recently, however, Cowboys star linebacker Micah Parsons, cornerback Trevon Diggs, and Beckham attended the Mavericks Suns game on Monday at American Airlines Center. When ESPN's Tim McMahon asked OBJ about his likelihood of signing with Dallas, Beckham replied, "It's a good possibility." Parsons also recently said Beckham told him that he could be prepared to play in 5 weeks. Aside from Dallas, 3 other teams that OBJ has shared interest in playing for include the Bills, Packers, and Giants, the team he played 5 seasons for after he was drafted in the first round out of LSU in 2014.